Hey, how's it going, everybody? Back again on another episode of Hotline Sehwani. Today we are continuing our voice acting series with Mr. Jon St John, the voice of Duke Nuke'm, Big the Cat, and the Postal Dude. How's it going, John? How are you today?
A little warm. We're having another heat wave here in Southern California, so if I start sweating, it's not because I'm nervous. It's literally the temperature in my home.
It's hot outside.
Oh, yeah.
So last time I spoke with you had to be like 2014, 15. John,
It's been a few years.
Yeah, John came on my nonprofit. I was doing a charity stream for St. Jude's back then, so he was kind enough to come on and answer some donor questions and whatnot. So it's been a while. So I still do the nonprofit. But we moved from New Jersey to Florida. So we kind of
Do I look older than last time?
You look younger, actually. You look younger. You joined and I was like, who is this guy?
Oh, that's funny. Oh, you're good. You're good at this.
And last time you were rocking the Chargers jersey.
Oh yeah. Those days are past. I'm back to my original team. Yeah. I'm back to the Chiefs. The Chiefs were my team for most of my life. I started following the Chargers when I moved to San Diego, but now that they're in LA, I don't give a damn about them. Haven't for 3 years now. I've been a Chiefs fan, and of course, my Chiefs won the Super Bowl, and we're 2-0 or 3-0 now this season. So I'm very pleased that we've got Patrick Mahomes. He's worth that $500 million.
Yeah, that's so I've been my dad over here, he's a huge Patriots fan. So,
is that right? Oh, too bad for him. They're going to suck this year.
So he went as soon as he saw, Tom Brady leaving, he was like, oh no, this is terrible. I can't believe it. And we live in Florida. So as soon as, he was the Bucs, he's like, I'm a Bucs fan now. This is great. And I love the Bucs.
Good for him.
Yeah, definitely. So let's kind of get into some of the the questions I have. And today I'll kind of briefly explain to you the goal before the call is just kind of talk about you and how you got into voice acting and what are some advices. So let's start with, what was your inspiration? What was your first gig into voice acting?
My first gig was literally Duke Nuke'm 3D.
Oh, wow.
And the way I lucked into that, and I did luck into it, anybody could have auditioned and gotten the part, but I live in San Diego, and one of the top casting directors at the time, Lonnie Manella, also lives in San Diego, and I was a production director at a radio station. She was hired to be the voice talent for an auto dealer. She came into my studio to record the spot, and while I'm setting up her microphone, she's doing all these crazy, wacky voices, and I figured, I'm going to show off in return. I turned on my mic and started doing crazy, wacky voices as well, and she said, wow, you have incredible range. Have you considered voice acting in video games? And of course, now this was 1995, and I went, voice acting in video games? Is that such a thing? He said, it's about to be, and you might be just the right guy for this character that George Broussard wants to develop for a company called 3D Realms. So she, within a week or so, we set up a phone patch where he could call in from Garland, Texas, and he told me what he expected for the voice to sound like, and we dialed it in, and I got the role. And of course, that led to many more roles because an iconic character like that, there was a lot of notoriety to being the voice of Duke Nuke'm, and it just helped my career, take off.
Mm-hmm. And one of the things too that's so cool about Duke Nuke'm is that there's such a cult following behind it and a push for the character, and there's only so many characters in my opinion from just TV or video games where it's kind of like intertwined, where like a character like Ash Williams, for instance, from The Evil Dead, like Bruce Campbell is that character, and a lot of people I feel like see Jon St John is Duke Nuke'm. It's kind of like one and the same. So like where do you feel that connection clicked with people as far as like that cult classic following? Because there's a lot of action games coming up. So like what made Duke Nuke'm so special?
I think just the fact that it was the first-person shooter that had a personality. It wasn't just one or two words. It was actual sentences. I mean, there weren't cutscenes in that game, but there were plenty of famous lines stolen from Hollywood films, stolen from Bruce Campbell, stolen from Rowdy Piper, right? It doesn't matter they were stolen. That was Duke's whole thing, you know?
He's like a
yeah, and for it to be a top-selling game for what? How many years? 4 or 5 years. Duke Nukem 3D was a top game in the industry. So that kind of cemented the legacy of Duke Nukem at that time.
Definitely, and now we're about to see coming up kind of soon, I guess, the Duke Nukem 3D, the 20th anniversary. So I saw it on your IMDb, you just completed the voice over for that. So was that fun to do, like another variation of him into it?
No, actually, it was the same exact lines. They needed me to re-record all of the original dialogue again. And so I have all of the original. Quality. Yeah, I had all the original 8-bit recordings that I got from Lee Jackson. He was the fellow who did all the music for Duke Nukem 3D. And I just queued up that CD, believe it or not, compact disc it was on, and listened to them and repeated them all. And yeah, got a really good 16-bit recording of all the new lines. So the 20th anniversary edition, which, what was that, 2 years ago now came out?
Yeah.
Yeah. It just updated, bumped up graphics and much better audio. And they did create a few new levels, but they didn't require any new dialogue, just the same lines again. So it was a real fast job. I think the original game only had 40 to 50 lines altogether. And I just redid those and, you know, slam dunk. That was so fast. Easy job. Easy money.
Definitely. Definitely good. I actually just started playing Bulletstorm a little bit.
Do you play the full clip edition? Do you play as Duke?
Yeah. I just realized because it just came out on Switch, and it just came out. I saw it on sale on the eShop, and I clicked it out. I was like, no way, and I got it. But it was hysterical because he's very like self-aware that, you know, he's not supposed to be here, and you know what's going on. He's yelling at the other character, so it was kind of funny them butting heads. And
hardest part about that gig, by the way, was the first, gosh, it had to be 7 or 8 pages of script. I had to play Duke drunk. And I asked them, can I literally get drunk before we do this? They said, no, that's not a good idea. I think they should have let me. I get drunk pretty good. But it was hard trying to, you know, Duke being all drunk. Where am I? You know, as dialogue like that is a little tricky to do. I'm not used to Duke not being in control of his senses.
Mm-hmm. And you were all like, you know, why don't I? It's for research purposes, you know. I need to do the job the best I can.
I should have twisted their arms a little harder. I think. Yeah. They might have bought me the tequila.
So going into that was your first, you know, big role, and it definitely cemented you as a serious big time voice actor in video games. What would you suggest? That was a good lineup opportunity for you that you had. So as a new voice actor coming into it, who's presented with a similar opportunity, what would be some advices that you would have for them to really nail it?
Let's think about that, because, you know, it's a lot harder to get your foot in the door today than it was when I got in.
Sure.
There are so many wannabe and new voice actors in the industry that the competition is absolutely fierce. But what I would say is, if you want to act in video games, step number one, acting classes. It's not about having a good voice or be able to imitate other voices. It really is about being able to act and deliver the lines appropriately without having to be line read by the director through an entire session, because that's time consuming. So number one, acting classes are good. Number two, you have to have a really good demo ready to go. That's your calling card. If you want to get in with some of these casting directors and have a shot, you have to prove to them that you've got the chops, and your demo generally does that. Not always, but it can show your range and your versatility. The most important thing is to have a good ear, not a good voice. If you have a good ear, you know how the line should sound when you read it. Or if the director line reads for you, you should be able to mimic them exactly. So having a good ear is critical. I would say, if you want to be a voice actor today, don't give up because it seems hard to do. It's something you should treat as a hobby at first, because you'll never pay the bills as a voice actor until you've built up a large list of clients, right?
Yeah.
Because they have to come back to you over and over again for you to be able to earn the money to pay your bills. So don't quit your day job is another good piece of advice I like to give. Yeah,
build
treat
it
as
up as a
hobby.
nice side gig until you can make something out of it. Definitely.
Yeah, make it your side hustle for a while, but you have to stay passionate about it. If you're serious about being a voice actor, it's not going to happen overnight. It's going to take time, so you have to be willing to invest that time and effort into it.
Yeah. That's so funny. I told the last person I spoke to before you was Laura Faye Smith. She does the voice for Rosalina in the Nintendo Mario game. And I was joking with her because every person I've spoken to so far, they all have different backgrounds, different stories of how they got into voice acting, what made them get into voice acting, either if they've been in theater or if they've been in radio or they've been doing, small-time commercials their whole life, and they got, something big in like video games or TV show. And everyone's always, the first thing they say is, you need to know how to act. It's not just read this line. And I think that's kind of like a common, misconception that people have that, I can do this. And
I've only ever had one role that I didn't really need acting experience for, and that was in the Sonic Adventures and Sonic Hero games, that E123 Omega robot character. Because there's no inflection, I only spoke like this the entire time. This is not acting, this is reading. Yeah, that's the only role ever that didn't require acting experience.
Yeah, but like how do you want it to sound? Just completely monologue. So
exactly.
While we're on the topic, you've also voiced Big the Cat, and that's another character that I guess another cult classic character, right? And last time we spoke, you did like a back and forth between Duke and Big the Cat. You're like, I'm talking to myself here. So how did you get into that? Was it kind of something similar? Getting into Big the Cat?
You'll be surprised at how similar. The same casting director who got me started, Lonnie Manella, she called me one Wednesday afternoon back in, I don't know what year it was, 1999, and said, hey, we're recording a game this Saturday at a particular studio in a particular city, and I'll need you to be there at 2:00. And I went, okay, you're going to send me audition sides? She said, no, don't worry about it. Just show up for the session. I'm like, okay, really? All right. So I show up and I walk in the door, and there are people I recognize there. Ryan Drummond, who's an old friend of mine who was playing the part of Sonic, and Jenny Doulard, who I got her the part of Amy in the original game there. And so I walk in and I see them, and everybody's reading their signs, and somebody's in the studio recording. And then Lonnie steps out of the director chair and approaches me in the hallway, and she shows me the script with a picture of Big the Cat. And I looked at it. My first response was, what the hell is that? And she said, this is Big the Cat. And I said, okay, yes, Big, I see that. She said, the vocal quality is kind of slow and dumb. He's not real bright. And I went, okay, I'm playing a fat, stupid cat. Okay, fine, whatever. So I said, what kind of voice? She goes, we'll figure that out when you get in the booth. So I get in the booth, and there's another director on the line from, I believe, from Tokyo, Japanese director, from, I guess, representing SEGA. And they want to oversee or overhear, as it were, everything we're doing. And I get in the studio, and Lonnie introduces me to them, and she says, okay, John, so we talked about the big stupid voice. And I went, we did? Oh, yeah, we did. She goes, so what do you think? And I went, I don't know. Maybe I can find my Froggy if I look for him. And the Japanese director said, oh, yes, very good. Yes, that one. And I'm like, wait, I can do better. No, that one's fine. That's it. And so I'm stuck with this voice looking for my Froggy. And so that's the voice that became Big the Cat with no effort whatsoever. I mean, I didn't audition for it. I didn't put anything into the voice except talking slow and dumb. And I guess you could call that dumb luck.
Yeah, they were like, hey, it works out. And you're like, I can, are you sure? Like, you want me to do something else? They're like, yeah, actually, just do something completely monotone instead of the other character, right?
and the E123 Omega was thrown at me after I finished Big the Cat. I said, okay, I'm done. I mean, my session took, 45 minutes maybe. And Lonnie goes, oh, we have this one other character maybe you could do. And I'm like, what? She goes, well, it's a robot character. And I went, oh, I can do a robot in a monotone voice anytime you want at all with no and she goes, okay, that's perfect, fine, let's get these lines. And he had what, 12 to 15 lines maybe?
Yeah, not
I think. Yeah, it took like 5 to 10 minutes to record that, and so I got paid extra for doing that. I mean, it was all just a real lucky thing for me. It's not that I don't have talent, but I was very lucky in that one. Yeah.
Well, it's one of those things where it really boils down. Sometimes it's who you know and the connections, and you kind of, you gave and you got back, where you helped set up your friend on the role of Amy, and then you were also able to get introduced into, the opportunity as well.
Yeah, quite often it is right place, right time. So I'm glad you mentioned that, because that's another piece of advice for wannabe voice actors. Networking is key today. You have to get in with the right people, rub elbows with the right people. And that's hard to do, but once you figure out who the key players are, and if you can get close to them and form relationships with them, that's going to help considerably.
Awesome. That's actually funny. I didn't know that Lonnie Minella was the director for like Sonic Adventure and Duke Nuke'm, because she also does a lot of characters, and she does
so many.
Yeah,
she's incredibly talented.
Yeah, I know she does like a Rouge and Sonic, and she does a ton of characters. It's list goes on and on.
Still, my favorite character that she plays is in another game that I'm also in called Rad Rogers, and she plays the Elder Tree. And her voice is perfect for it, and she has no issue with profanity. And though the game Rad Rogers, it's a side scroller, very colorful, very cute. I don't know if you've seen it. It's just adorable. But then all of a sudden, you're expecting all this cutesy stuff, and the language becomes foul. And my character Dusty gets to say a lot of expletives. So I really enjoyed a very cute, lovely game that has foul language.
I would have to check that out, definitely. I never heard. How long did Rad Roger come out?
Oh gosh, it's been 4 years now, I think. Yeah.
Okay. That sounds pretty funny.
It's a great game, and it looks wonderful. You have to play it if you get a chance.
Yeah, it's kind of reminds me of. Have you ever seen Happy Tree Friends? Where it's like
my
it's
friend
like this
Ken,
cutesy.
Yeah, my friend Ken Pontac writes Happy Tree Friends.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so I'm well aware. And yes, that's a very good comparison. Happy Tree Friends and Rad Rogers, a lot of similarities there.
Yeah, I always when I invite people over, we're like kind of like scrolling through and like, what do you want to watch? And they're like, have you ever heard of Happy Tree Friends? And if they say yes, we move on. But if they say no, like, it's really,
you have to
nice
expose
card.
them.
Yeah, I have to expose them. Like, it's just like it's a a really like Mickey Mouse-esque cartoon. Like, we'll put it on, and it's like not at all.
Oh no, it's shocking. Happy Tree Friends is shocking initially. Yeah.
So, what initially kind of going back a little bit to Duke, and that because that's naturally your biggest role and most well known, and it's kind of funny. It's kind of ironic, being like Duke, like this complete badass character, and also being pretty well known for Big the Cat too. And that's kind of like a back and forth. It's almost like the voice actor that does Eeyore and Optimus Prime. It's like just two opposite worlds, right? So
right.
How do you feel about, obviously like Duke Nuke'm, you can see how that progressed as far as like, wow, we're best-selling game for 4 or 5 years. And was that something big for you as far as like seeing a path forward?
The beginning?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's. I'm glad you asked that. No, that's kind of funny that when Duke Nukem 3D came out, my oldest brother, who's passed away, rest in peace, he and I used to play the game, with a dial-up modem. We'd play Duke matches. And he's on the East Coast, I'm on the West Coast, so you can imagine the real challenge was just getting the damn game to connect and stay connected long enough, right? But we played the game for 2 or 3 years. Every like Friday and Saturday night we'd play and have fun, and I did not know in all that time from 1995 up until 2000, I had no idea anybody else even played the game or knew what it was.
Oh wow.
I didn't follow the gaming industry really, because I'm a voice actor. I'm not a gamer. I was then, I guess, back in my 30s. But I had no idea that it was anything until I think it was 2002 when I got a Facebook message from the con chair of MagFest in Washington, D.C., Brendan Becker. And he reached out and said, I don't even know if this is going to get to you. And I don't know what your response will be, but would you consider being a guest at our convention? And I thought, well, gosh, my family lives in Virginia. I'd love to go see them. That's a free trip pretty much. Yeah, sure. Absolutely. And I did not know what to expect. I got there. I'm in the lobby of the hotel, and Brendan's looking for me, and he'd seen a picture of me, so he knew who I was, and he came over. And so I'm in the lobby, and there's hundreds of people in cosplay, and all the nerds are there checking in and playing tabletop games and stuff. And he yells across the lobby, he goes, oh my God, Jon St. John, Duke Nuke'm. And everybody turns and looks at me, and I'm like, what? And they all, the love was instantaneous. People took to me like they'd known me forever. And I was a little bit amazed by it and a little freaked out at first. But then, anybody gives you unconditional love, you're gonna feel really good about it. And so for that whole weekend of that convention, everybody treated me like I was the king. And so they invited me back the next year and the next year and the next year and the next year. Yeah. And so and they started calling me the king of MagFest. And then I started doing other conventions where I was crowned king again, never self-proclaimed. People said, hey, you're the king of this convention, and we want to party with you. And it just turned into this huge love affair between me and the fans. Then I understood a lot of people played the game and loved it. And a lot of them said, I grew up listening to your voice. I'm like, what? The game's only been out for 7 years. Yeah, but I started playing when I was 15 and now I'm 20 something. Okay, I get it. Yeah, you grew up listening to Duke Nukem phrases. Yeah. And they made me their show pony. They wanted me to do Duke phrases constantly, and I was perfectly happy to do it. It never gets old.
Definitely. That's one thing that I guess that's important too, when you step into that and people really like the role and people really enjoy the character. It's the trade-off, right? Where people come up to you, I'm sure they ask you the same question like 1,000 times, or ask you to read the same line, but it's part of their life and part of their childhood, and you've kind of got connected into that. So
and I'm not going to deny them of that. I mean, if they're going to ask the same question over and over again, that's fine, because I already know the answer. It just makes it easier.
Yeah. That's true. So kind of going, piggybacking off of that a little bit, when coming up with the voice for Duke, what was the general inspiration behind it?
Well, I can tell you originally what George Broussard had in mind, because he was a fan, I guess, of the actor Charles Bronson. And Charles Bronson was a badass in the movies back in the 60s and 70s. That was his original thought, was something like Charles. And I went, oh, Charles Bronson, who talks kind of like this. Hey, it's Charles Bronson. And Lonnie was directing the set. She goes, I don't think Charles Bronson is the right take on this. I think maybe Dirty Harry is more like it. So, John, could you do like a line from Dirty Harry? And I went, do you feel lucky? Well, do you, punk? And he goes, that's close. And George Broussard said, oh, that has the right tonality to it, but keep in mind, this guy is huge and roided out. And I went, oh, I'll just lower the pitch. Do you feel lucky? Well, do you, punk? And they both stopped and went, that's it right there, that voice. And fortunately, it's the easiest character voice I do. This doesn't cause any vocal strain. I've been doing it for so many years. It's natural. I could talk like this the rest of my life with no problem. Mother. Self-editing.
Yeah, that's funny. You go out to you go out to a restaurant, and not now, but you just slips by mistake, like, oh, sorry.
Oops, my bad.
So that's fun. So that they went for like the Dirty Harry, like Clint Eastwood-esque style character.
I think it was mostly about the vocal quality and the attitude. I think is what nailed it down, was imitating Dirty Harry. Yeah.
Sure. So for the attitude, because I think the voice is one thing from Duke, but a lot of it is, I guess, people really like him based off the attitude and the personality. So where was that kind of driven on your side, or was that more on the developing side, kind of coming to you?
A little column A, a little column B.
Sure,
yeah,
sure.
I had some input into it. I didn't. I rarely went off script and ad-libbed. I did get a few lines in the Duke Nukem Forever game that I got to mess with.
Sure.
But I stuck with the script and kept the attitude the way they wanted it.
Definitely. That's really cool. I know that that was I guess another question, and just based off your voice acting experience, and you've already answered for Duke, but is it kind of a case by case when you go in and who kind of is the relier? Do you really rely on the director? Are they relying on you, or does it really depend on the experience of the project?
That's 50-50 as well, and I have a bit of a handicap that a lot of voice actors don't have. When they send me the audition sides, that means that there's generally artwork contained within them. I prefer not to look at the artwork, and I often ask them, don't send me the artwork on the character. And that's my handicap, because I will look at the picture and I will determine what I think the voice should sound like for that artwork. And that's often not what they're looking for, because keep in mind, the artist who drew it and the casting director have two different ideas of what it is. And quite frankly, in any casting for any game or any voiceover project, the casting director never really knows exactly what voice they want. I mean, you've listened to 27, 28, 29, 30. The 30th one you hear, you go, oh, that voice is close to what I had in mind. Put that in pile A, right? And you go through and you listen to 50, 60, 75, 80, right? And out of all of these auditions, certain voices jump out that the casting director will go, that's a good match. They never know exactly what it's going to be, but somebody will have that tonal quality or that attitude that will jump out, and the casting director will go, okay, that one works for this character. So creating the voiceover for me, I try to stay away from looking at the artwork, because I get trapped in my own mind of what it should sound like. And while the artist may agree, whoever drew the character, the casting director may have a totally different idea. So it's me and the director, after they've heard my audition and I have the right tonal quality or whatever, we get in the studio, dialing in the voice is a little bit different. The first thing I ask is, what is the age? What is the ethnicity? What dialect are we talking about? Does this character, because age is crucial. If it's a younger character, it might have more of this kind of tonal quality. If it's a middle-aged actor, it might sound like me. If it's older, there's a bit of raps to the voice from being worn out, and that's what gives the old person sound, which I'll naturally sound like this in another 10 years, I hope not. But there's all of these little variables, and you can dial in the voice to fit the character better once the actor and the director get together in the studio. But you're always selected by your audition, and you have to be somewhere in the ballpark for that character before they select you.
Sure. And it's actually kind of interesting that I've had people who actually preferred seeing and kind of getting that visual for them, because at least they feel like they get a little more context. But I can also see the con of that, which is if you see the picture of the character, it's twofold, where one person, that's not their vision for the character, and the other is where you kind of get consumed by it. You're like, does that sound right? Match the character? It doesn't line up with them properly. Interesting.
Yeah, it's my handicap personally. I think most voice actors want to see the artwork and base the voice on what they see. For me, it just doesn't work. My brain doesn't work that way.
Yeah, definitely. And I guess that kind of goes to, a piece of advice, which is to really just do what will work best for you in the profession. And I think that's kind of not just limited to voice acting. That's just overall, and kind of fitting it to it. So going back to, Beat the Cat for a second. That was a character that I know you mentioned. You're like, hey, I just kind of similar to Duke, but Duke was more of a you just didn't know that the information on the internet was still starting. Voice acting, gaming was a thing. Back in 1999 when you did the voice of Beat the Cat, was that? I'm sure that wasn't a character either that today people will be like, oh, you do Big? Like, was that something also kind of surreal for you? Like, I did this voice in a take, and people loved it.
Oh, I thought it was such a minor little part in a game that I thought the only character anybody cares about really is Sonic the Hedgehog.
Sure.
And maybe Tails. I mean, those were the big characters that people would follow and play as. nobody plays as Big the Cat. He's a little side adventure, and it's slow moving. And I knew what it was when I recorded the voiceover. I knew it was a small segment. And Lonnie, I think she even presented it that way to me. It's like, this is not a lead character. It's a small role. I'm sorry. She's apologizing for the part. Little did she know apologizing for the part was appropriate. But no, it was a nothing little, like I get credits in a lot of games for additional voices. I've done lots of additional voices. I saw Big the Cat as probably an additional voice, only fortunate that he gets a name in the game. And then for some reason, gamers took to Big the Cat, and I don't get it. It's the dumbest thing ever. I'm glad they did. It certainly helped my career. It didn't hurt any. And back when, I still remember back in the early 2000s when I'd meet fans at conventions and they said, "Oh, you're Duke Nuke'm," and I'd say, "I'm also Big the Cat in Sonic the Hedgehog games." They go, "What?" They couldn't believe that.
It's just like it's an implode.
yeah, it didn't seem right to them at all.
Definitely, that's so funny. It's just like one of those things before when I mentioned, the guy who voices Optimus Prime is also Eeyore. You're just like, wait a minute, what is this? You're just trying to
Peter Cullum
connect
is also
the dots.
Eeyore. That's crazy.
Yeah. And then you're trying to like connect the dots, and you're like, wait, what's going on here? That's so funny.
I got a funny story about that, by the way. One of my voice actor friends, Jim Cummings, who's the voice of Winnie the Pooh and Tigger and Darkwing Duck. We were at a convention in Hartford, Connecticut years back. Must go back 6-7 years now. And he and I ended up in a bar in downtown Hartford drinking after all the fans kind of went off to go do panels and stuff. And he and I didn't have anything scheduled this particular night. We're in a bar drinking. And, Disney owns Jim. He has to be very careful about saying anything inappropriate in public. He just won't do it. He's very good about that. But it was just he and I in a bar. And I asked him, I wonder if he even remembers this. Maybe not. I asked him to do a couple of Duke Nuke'm lines in the Winnie the Pooh voice. and it was funny as hell. I'll never forget it. I laughed my fool head off at the bar. And I don't do a very good Winnie the Pooh. I mean, he's Winnie the Pooh, but imagine hearing, oh bother, oh, rip your head off and shit down your neck. I mean, that was just the funniest thing I'd ever heard at the time. And I'll never forget you for doing that, Jim. It was awesome.
That's hysterical. That's something, it's just, locked in. It happened, and that was it. You're like, no one's around, right? That's okay. I can do
Nobody
it
would ever believe it. Nobody ever believes that, but it happened.
That's so funny. Wow. But that's I guess that's really crazy. Just, not even when you're filming for a character like Duke or even like Big in this case, and I guess sometimes you don't even realize that impact, and especially today, I think it makes it a little bit easier, right? Because you have social media, you have the internet, and you can kind of see the reaction from people. But back in late 90s, early 2000s, it wasn't fully established yet. So that's really crazy. And I think people like it's like the comedic relief, I guess, of the game, where you have Sonic is very, very fast and energetic, and Big the Cat's slow and has the wants to fish, and you're like, what am I doing? I was just playing this, and now I'm chasing a frog. So, but let's talk a little bit about Postal. You're also, the Postal dude in Postal.
Postal 4, no regrets. Regrets.
So how did that happen for you?
That was very fortunate because of another friend of mine, the original voice of Claptrap in Borderlands, David Eddings, and I are old partying buddies. And he's good friends with Mike Jarrett with Running with Scissors. They all live in Texas, Dallas and Austin, I think. And about a year ago now, I get a message from David going, "Hey, my buddy Mike wants to talk to you about a character role in a game that he does." And I said, "Really, what game?" He said, "It's called Postal." And I didn't know anything about Postal at the time. So I looked it up. Oh, it's a game that was banned in many countries because it was ridiculously violent and sexist and racy and a lot of foul language. And I went, oh, right up my alley.
Yeah, you're like, I wonder why they thought of Duke Nuke'm for this.
Exactly. So Mike reaches out to me. He goes, yeah, we're going to make part 4 of this game. And I said, well, I've been researching it on the internet. And he goes, oh, no, you're not going to do it. And I went, no. I was researching on it, and there's no part 3. And he goes, yeah, no, skip part 3. We're going to write to part 4. Okay, okay, fine. It
makes sense if you don't think about it.
Exactly. And he sent me voice files of the original actor who played the role. I forget his name now. But for some reason, they either couldn't reach him, or he didn't want to do it, or I can't imagine why he wouldn't want to do it. But they sent me his voice files, and I said, he sounds like a pukey disc jockey from the 1980s. Do you want me to read it like this? And they said, no, don't do an imitation of him. The guy is going to be, the Postal dude is just a snarky dude. And I went, oh, shit, you need my regular voice then, because
yeah.
I sound more sarcastic than anybody I know, and I'm a snarky MF. And they went, well, let's hear it. And they send me some lines, and I recorded them and sent them back in my natural voice. And he said, you nailed it. That's exactly what we want. So as it turns out, Postal Dude is the first role I've ever played in this voice, in my natural voice. And apparently it plays pretty well. People are liking it so far. So that was quite a feather in my cap, I think, to be able to get to a point where I can use my own voice for a character, because typecasting.
Yeah. We need a sarcastic guy who is, what did you before you said is has sexist jokes, has racy, banned in countries, very violent. Someone called Jon St John.
Exactly. I think that's pretty much how it went. I'm pretty sure David Eddings recommended me for it too. So thank you, David. I appreciate it.
That's fine. Claptrap is another really great voice. It's a kind of a similar tone of before, where we're like big. It's just like the comedic relief of the game. He does a really good voice.
And now Claptrap is played by a new friend of mine, Jim Ferranda, whom he and I have hung out at different conventions, and he joins my Tequila Tuesday Zoom cast on Tuesdays from time to time. He's a great guy. Both David Eddings and Jim Ferranda, both wonderful people. If you ever get a chance to interview them, I highly recommend it.
Okay, I'll have to write them down on my list for people to reach out to next. Mm-hmm. So kind of going into, I know you recently also did a TV skit on for Liberty, for your voice character in that show as well, from the video game to TV show.
I did, but I can't even speak on it because I can hardly remember what it was all about.
Well, I guess the question there wasn't really about the content of what it was. It was more of it. Is there any, from going from like video games to like TV shows, was there a lot of difference in terms of the process for you, or was it kind of similar?
It's all pretty much the same. I'm in a booth most of the time, owned with my studio downstairs, and because the pandemic has made it much easier for us to record from our home studios and not have to go to another studio anymore. I mean, back in the day when I was doing World of Warcraft or Guild Wars 2, Dota 2, Valve software would fly me to Seattle to record. They didn't need to. I could have recorded it from my own studio. They could have booked a studio here in San Diego where I live. But because they were fanboys, right, who grew up playing Duke Nuke'm 3D, they wanted to meet with me and I think go out and drink together. So they used to fly me to Seattle whenever they wanted me to record lines for them, which I loved doing. It was a blast. And I collected frequent flyer miles along the way.
Sure.
But now with the pandemic, everything has changed to where I doubt I'll be recording in a remote studio ever again. I'll probably always be recording from my own studio here at home, which is well equipped. I have a very good studio, state-of-the-art equipment, sound dead room, expensive microphone and processing. So probably for the rest of my career, I'll be recording from home unless there's mocap involved, in which case I would have to go to their studio.
Sure. Or unless there's another party in Seattle. Right?
I would not turn down an offer to do that.
So what of the out of everything you've done so far in your career, is there any favorite moments you've had? And in addition to that, was there any I guess, really challenging things that you faced as a voice actor, and like, what would you suggest to overcome that to a new one?
Well, for challenges, the vocal strain can often be an issue. In fact, when we get invitations to audition for parts, the emails now contain a disclaimer that says, caution, this project contains vocally stressful material. And when I first started getting emails with those, I thought nothing of it. Like,
Sure.
Okay, they're
just a disclaimer, just covering their bases.
they're just covering their asses legally. But then I reflect back on, in the late 90s, I was doing work for 989 Studios, which became Sony Interactive.
Sure.
And I did this game for them called Twisted Metal 4.
Oh,
and
wow.
in the game, I'm all of the male cast. I'm every male cast member, but I'm also the Sweet Tooth the Clown spokesperson. So I narrate the intro of the game and everything. And after examining what all the character voices were going to sound like, the fellow Rex was in charge of this. I can't remember his last name, or I'd give him credit. But Rex said to me, and by the way, recommended by Lonnie Manella, again, to this guy Rex who worked at 989. We decided that it would be best to do General Warthog and Mr. Jones and the Trash Man and Rob Zombie. All the additional voices would be done first because they weren't vocally stressful, whereas the Sweet Tooth spokesperson clown was very vocally stressful. It was my take on the remember Tales from the Crypt on HBO?
Yep.
John, what was his name, who did the voice of the Crypt Keeper? John Krasinski? No, maybe, I can't recall. But it was remember he went hello boys and ghoulies, right? That voice. Yeah. So doing that voice for 2 hours, and that hurt just a little just now doing that. But I had a higher pitch as well. I just don't want to hurt my voice right now.
Sure, of course.
That was so vocally stressful that by the time that session ended, my voice was like this, and it stayed this way for 2 days. And so for 2 days, I could not audition and I could not record anything because my throat was completely worn out from screaming those lines and that maniacal laugh I did 20 takes of to get just the right one. And so now I understand why they put that disclaimer in all the emails, because you can do a character that will trash your voice for days and cost you auditions or possible jobs. Sure. So I know that whenever I have a voiceover like that, I got to make sure that I don't book any other jobs for a couple of days until my vocal cords can, come back, so to speak, to recover.
Definitely. And I guess that helps you give like a sense of which ones to prioritize, where let's get the additional ones out of the way and then I can focus on this one later in the week, or however you want to build it around.
Exactly. That's just how it went too. And that Twisted Metal 4 was a 1-day recording session. Everything had to be done in 1 day. And the shame of it is that's before video game voice recordings became unionized. So for all of that work, I maybe made $1,000, maybe. Yeah. Think about the Duke Nuke'm 3D stuff way back in the day. Probably got $800 for doing that. But when you think about how many millions of dollars they made on that game, it doesn't seem fair. Well, now that it's union scale, it's much easier. For instance, last week, I reprised a few roles in the Star Trek Online game. Wow. And because it's a union game, the session only took 15, 20 minutes max, but I got half-day union scale, which I'm not going to brag about how much money it was, but for a 15 to 20 minute session, I was paid handsomely. And I love that work. I especially like the guy that I worked with, a guy named Michael Henry at Cryptic Studios. Wonderful person to work with. FedExes you the check right after the session. So
just one night, I'll be over.
That's a big bonus. And I hate to sound all idiocracy, but I like money. If you're familiar with that film.
Yeah, that's funny. Well, I guess that's a good, maybe a good topic to kind of discuss, and not to kind of get into the finances or anything like that, but as far as getting in, because no one's really mentioned this yet, as far as the union, unionizing video game voiceovers and everything, is there, what would be, besides the financial aspect of it, what are some other good benefits from being in a union?
Oh, of the union? Well, SAG-AFTRA, there's a good retirement plan. You can get medical insurance through it. However, you have to book a certain amount of work through the union each year to qualify for benefits. I don't do enough union work to qualify for most of the benefits. I'm in the retirement plan, but I have to pay dues, but your dues is based on the previous year of union income. So currently I don't pay jack because I didn't have any union work. Well, that's not true. I had a couple of commercials that were union gigs last year, but not a whole lot of video game work that was union. So if you are an aspiring voice actor and you want to join the union, you need to do what I did and most voice actors do, and that's become financial core, which means it's kind of a downgraded membership, but it allows you to do union and non-union work. If you're a full union member, you're not supposed to be doing non-union jobs.
Oh, wow.
And quite
so
frankly,
you can't do like freelance stuff outside of that.
Yeah, I could not survive on that. I don't do enough union work to pay all of the bills. I have to do, commercials for much less money that are non-union, but I do so many of them that I can pay the bills.
Balance it out, exactly.
Yeah, so Phi Core is important if you're going to join the union, and the only other aspect of being a Phi Core member means you cannot vote on union policies or whatever, and you cannot pay your dues via their website. Oh, poor me! I have to write a check and lick an envelope and mail it in. Big deal. Or use my auto pay on my bank account to do it. I just can't use their website to make payments. So big deal. I don't see any reason for anybody to be full union unless
to be like butthurt about it. Like, oh no, I have to schedule this ACH. This is tough.
Right. So but you definitely want to be, if you get into voice acting, you definitely want to be union at some level so that you can get those jobs. But here's another thing to keep in mind is that the Taft-Hartley Act allows you to do 3 union jobs before you join the union. And that was created so that you could get the feel of what it's like to do union work, understand how it works, and what
before you get locked into it.
Exactly. And then by the time your 4th job comes around, you're a must join. That means you have to, or give up ever doing union work ever again.
Oh, wow. Wow, that's actually, well, at least they let you kind of try it out, try before you buy it, right?
I think it's perfectly fair. Yeah, I like the system.
Sure. So kind of fast forward a little bit to, today and everything. Is there any new projects that you want to talk about as far as to let the audience know to be excited about coming up?
There are projects I want to talk
about. Things
that
you can talk about. Let's rephrase.
The NDAs, yeah. I can tell you that I've got a couple of new characters in Star Trek Online now, in addition to the Klingon Captain Admiral Commander Bavat. I'm also Commander Burgess and a few other Starfleet characters as well. Of course, Postal 4 will be officially out before you know it. That's coming soon. Other than those, I can't talk about the other projects I'm involved with, except for maybe King Kong Cruise. Kong Cruise. I can talk about that, right?
Yeah, go for it.
Or do you want to save that for later?
Oh, we'll say we'll save it as during the wrap up period.
Okay, yeah.
So let's say as far as your you have a lot of experience and upcoming project and everything. Was there any like a favorite moment that you've ever had in voice acting overall?
Wow. You mean in the recording process or in the entire?
Well, just in the recording process. Were there any like memorable lines from Duke that you just cracked you up, or any memorable lines from Postal or whichever?
I mostly Duke because they kind of went viral back when. A line about the captain's log. Are you familiar with that one?
No, tell me.
Made for a very funny YouTube clip that got, I don't know, 1 million views or whatever, where Lonnie's directing me, and you can hear her directing, and I enter some room, and on a countertop is the captain's log. And before I recorded the line, Lonnie went and said, "It's not like the captain took a dump. You're not looking at his shit in a toilet." And boom, my mind goes there, and I can't get it out of my mind. So I keep going, "Oh, the captain's log." The captain's log. Oh shit, it's a log. And I couldn't get that out of my head, and I kept laughing. And she said, "Okay, look, you got to stop laughing. You clear your mind. I'm sorry I said that." And I went, "Dead babies, dead babies, dead babies, dead babies." Oh, the captain's log. And I got a take right after that. But she had to say something silly that I got stuck in my head, and I'll never forget that one, mostly because it became a fan favorite outtake online, and it got so many hits that every time I would do a convention appearance, people would ask me, "How did that happen? What's the story of that?"
Tell me that. Yeah, exactly.
That's
one
of my favorite ones.
I'll make sure to link to that, guys, in the comments below, so you guys can check it out.
And then the other would be, Bulletstorm Full Clip Edition, when I'm re-recording most of Steve Bloom's lines as Grayson, and I was supposed to burp quite a bit, and I have an issue with burping. I have a smaller esophagus, so I have to chew food really well, and really good hearty burps, not easy for me. So I'm at Gearbox Software in Dallas, and they have a little break room on every floor. And right down next to the studio, there's a break room. So I go and I get a Coke Zero, I get a second Coke Zero. I guzzle them down real fast, and they want me to burp these lines. And that's about all I can get out. And I went, God, we're going to have somebody stand in for me on the burping. And then toward the end of the session, I said, we had finished recording. I went, "Oh, roll. And the engineer started rolling again, and these huge belches are coming out. And they got used, fortunately. So I felt like I wasn't doing my job accordingly, because I couldn't belch during the session. But after it ended, it all came out.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I delivered.
I did indeed.
You should be like, "Hey, what's the deal? You let me drink Coke Zero to burp, but I can't drink some tequila to get drunk for Duke's lines."
Right. I bet a couple of beers would have done the job.
Yeah, exactly. So, kind of coming to close, I just looked at the time. Time flies. It
does.
Just to close out. What was it like? This is more of a fan question from some of our friends. What was it like working with Mega 64 for the Doug Huggem skit?
Those guys are great. They are so funny, and it turns out they're local. And when they found out that I lived in San Diego, and they're out in a little community called Santee, when they found out that I was here, they reached out and said, "Would you consider doing some of these lines for Doug Huggem?" I went, "Doug Huggem? What are we talking about?
Who the hell is Doug Huggem?"
Same voice as Duke, but he's kinder, gentler. And I'm like, okay. And they had me do silly stuff like, "How about a nice Christian side hug?" And it was a lot of fun working with those guys, because they're just silly and goofy. And took to me right away. We became friends on the spot that day. I haven't seen or heard from them since, but it was a lot of fun recording the Doug Huggem stuff, and I appreciate that kind of creativity.
Sure. Yeah, that was really funny. I know the end of the video, it says we'll release March 2025, and everyone's in the comment section like,
make everybody wait 14 years.
I better see Doug Huggem come out. I better see it come out. So we laugh every time we see that video, just because it's such a contrast between Duke Nuke'm and
exactly.
So kind of coming to close, some character questions for you. I've been asking you specifically. I won't ask you as Postal Dude, because you said your voice and Postal Dude are very, very similar, right?
You're hearing him right now, dude. This is what he sounds like.
Yeah. So as far as I've been asking you questions about voice acting and some advices that you would give to new people. So what would Duke Nuke'm say as a voice acting piece of advice?
Stay out of my franchise. That's right, I've got the job you want, other voice actors. Well, you ain't gonna get it.
No competition. Exactly. No competition. Stay out. And what would Big the Cat say in that case?
What's voice acting? I've never heard of that.
That's exactly what he would say. Exactly, probably to the T. So, but before we come to a close, tell us about King Kong Cruise and that.
I would love to tell you all about King Kong Cruise. I have been.
You mean this?
Yeah. You like my background, my virtual background? I made that one myself. I've been guesting at conventions for a long time now, 20 years, and I've really enjoyed the experience. And I got a wild hair up my ass a couple of years ago and decided that I wanted to have my own convention. I wanted to host one, and I wanted it to be different than conventions typically are. They're all good, they're all fun, but they're all the same thing. They're panels and cosplay and Cards Against Humanity and drinking at a hotel. That's pretty much the crux of most fan conventions. I wanted to make mine different. I wanted mine to be an interactive convention where the attendees and the guests have adventures together. Instead of the guests, after they do a panel, they'll sign your autographs and then they disappear in their rooms and you don't see them until their next panel or whatever. That doesn't fly, and I do not invite guests who want to spend all of their time in their cabins. This is highly interactive. If we're going to go snorkeling, you're going to go snorkeling with me. You're going to go kayaking with me. Climbing the rock wall, I'll be right there with you. Doing the flow rider where you surf on that, fake wave on the back of the ship, I'm doing that. My crew does that. My guests do that. So King Kong Cruise is a convention for fans on a cruise ship, a Royal Caribbean cruise ship. This next March, we sail from Orlando, Florida to the Bahamas on a 4-night adventure that, believe it or not, the price is around $350, and that includes all of your food. So, I mean, this is a really good value. As regular land-based conventions go, this is actually a little bit cheaper. The only additional expense,
San Diego Comic-Con, and
it's
like $1,200.
Yeah, the only additional expense is, of course, getting to Florida for the con. Now, a lot of people in the Southeast, they're just going to drive there. But each year we've grown our audience. This is our 3rd year, and we've sold more cabins than ever before, which is good for me because this year it's break even. Doesn't cost me a dime. The first 2 years I had to invest my own money to fly guests out and put them in hotels and put them on the cruise ship and pay for all of their alcohol, which that's the most expensive part of having is the alcohol.
Like we need the poo drank $15,000 in alcohol.
Right, exactly. But this year I'll break even, so I'm very happy. I'll be happier when I turn profit on it if that's possible. But even if I don't, if I get a free vacation on a cruise ship every year with my voice actor buddies, I'm very happy. This coming year we have the voice of the Joker, Richard Epcar. And his wife, Ellen Stern Epcar, will be along. We have Albert Wesker from Resident Evil himself. DC Douglas is one of our guests. We've got Shea Gorath from, what's the name of that game? And from the Fallout series, Wes Johnson. He's also the voice of the Washington Capitals, who were previously the Stanley Cup champions. Yep. We've got Mike Rawson, who's also from the Fallout series and Fallout 76. And and me, of course. I'm not just the host. I'm also a guest.
Last but not least,
right? So me and these other voice actors, we will be doing adventures with the attendees. So we have panels every night in our conference space, but we also have drunken karaoke. We have drunken mini golf on the top deck of the ship. We have the rock climbing wall. We have the snorkeling, the kayaking. All of the adventures are everybody together doing these things. And so if you're interested, we're at kingkongcruise.com, and there's still time to get in. We're not promoting it heavily right now because of the pandemic. People are very nervous, and that's understandable. But Royal Caribbean has assured us, March, we're on. And the great thing this year is that we're on a great big ship called Mariner of the Seas, which is beautiful. It was our first year ship, and there'll be much fewer people on it. Because of the social distancing practices Royal Caribbean has put into place, we'll have a huge ship with about 50% capacity, which makes it...
You have full reign of the ship.
Yes, it makes it so much better. And we get 2 full days on the private island Coco Cay, which has Coco Key, which actually has a huge water park built into it, and beautiful beaches, and that's where, of course, we do the kayaking and the snorkeling. So we have 2 full days on a Tuesday and a Thursday of the cruise, and our cruise is a Monday through a Friday. So you have the weekend either end of the cruise to get there and get home again and to decompress afterwards. So I'm very excited that we're doing it again and that you gave me the opportunity to promote King Kong Cruise here. Thank you, Joe.
No problem. Thank you.
You're
for
the best, man.
That's really cool. That's actually something that's different. That's really fun.
Yeah, you're considering coming now, aren't you?
I live in Florida, so I'm not too. It's like
How far are
a
you
match
from
made in
Orlando?
heaven. Not bad, like 2.5 hours.
Dude, you should be getting a cabin. I'll tell you what, you get a cabin and come along, we can do your podcast from the ship, from like the bow of the ship. We can do the silly "I'm the king of the world" stuff during your podcast. You might want to think about it.
I'll do a podcast of like Jon St John and golf. We'll just do like the monotone golf voice, but asking you questions throughout it.
Oh yeah, the drunken mini golf would be ideal for the podcast.
Yeah.
Or the pub crawl. Our mascot, Mr. Whistles, that's a man in a dolphin costume. He leads the pub crawl every night.
That's awesome. So you've been doing this for 3 years. And this will be the third, so I guess that's nice. That must be a good feeling that it's broken even, because I'm sure in the beginning you're building a convention, so it's like people need to know, you get word of mouth and so forth. So
right, and I haven't gone broke doing it. That's the beauty of it, because there's a lot of logistics, a lot of money involved in getting everybody out there, but we've managed to do it successfully. And like I said, this year it's a break even. It won't cost me a dime, and I get a free vacation.
That's awesome. Well, Jon St John, thank you so much for coming on, talking, and giving some voice acting advice. Any closing words? Where can people find you? We know where we can come on the cruise with you on King Kong Cruise, but where can people find and connect with you today?
Well, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, JSJ is Duke, or John is Duke, both on Instagram and Twitter. And you can get on my Facebook fan page, which is Jon St John Duke Nuke'm. My personal page, unfortunately, I've been maxed out at 5,000 friends for so long, and Facebook will not increase the number. I've been trying to get them to do it, because on my personal page, I give my real opinions, and
Sure.
I do interact with people. I talk to people, I answer them. On the fan page, I can't. It's just a little too much, and it's not set up for that. But you can follow me there for gaming news and convention news. It's all right there, because I will be next year making a lot of convention appearances, since all of this year's appearances were canceled. I'm looking forward to 2021 being a very busy year and to appearing all over the country.
That'll be awesome. Awesome. And as far as, I'll give you a little plug too. Tell us about, as if somebody wants a voice of Duke for their family or friend, they can find you on Cameo.
Cameo, thank you for mentioning that. Absolutely. I do cameos almost daily now, which is very cool. And I'll say anything you want. You write the script. I might tweak it up to read a little bit better.
But Duke is ready to prank your friends or say happy birthday or happy anniversary to you.
And my Duppet will be around for some of those too. If you specifically request the Duppet, I will put the Duppet on camera.
Oh, wow. Awesome. So, hey, John, thank you so much. Appreciate you coming on again. It's been 5 years. You look much younger, so hopefully in the next 5 years, I'll come on and you'll be like Benjamin Button. You'll be aging backwards at that point.
Exactly. I'll look 15 next time.
All right. I guess I'll have to see you in March. See you around.
Good to see you. Thank you, Joe.